everyone, and welcome to the Premier League panel show at American Scouser over here. Mecca is not here. I'm back to hosting. This should be interesting. Good times are coming back. And Mecca is not fired because American Scouser is not Chelsea or Manchester United. We don't just camp people left and right. But so he'll be back shortly. I know like Gordo, so we'll be taking turns over here. Honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to this. Kind of sick of talking Premier League with my brother and rival bros, the United fan, which will actually happen an hour after we finish this over here. But we got Sully with Newcastle, Io, Manchester United, Jay with Chelsea, and Glenn with Brentford. We only have Io in the first half of the show, so I do want to start with. We didn't have an episode last week, so all this the chairs, dancing chair, what musical chairs happening for the Premier League managers.
I like dancing chairs. I like how that sounds. Dancing
chairs.
I'm gonna start using that.
So let's start with that. We'll go in order. I think who got canned first? Raise your hands. Did Amarim get canned first? Right?
No, Maresca did.
Maresca. Jay, you win. Okay.
Hey, so Glenn, you still have manager, right? Glenn, me and you, we're the only ones with managers, so high five.
Yeah, we have a coach, which Amarim apparently didn't want to be. So let's start with Chelsea real quick. Where are you with that, Jay? I know, like you guys have talked about obviously in the show before. Because I'm gonna ask you guys the same question. One, are you for it? B, even if you are for it, what do you think about the timing of it?
I think it really shines a microscope on the model that we have going on at Chelsea with the new Blueco ownership group. I think this is our fifth manager, and it seems like whether they were let go or they left voluntarily or by mutual consent, the last two managers, Pochettino and Maresca, have both fallen out with ownership and didn't want to be a yes man, and as such, kind of that relationship fell sour, and they were let go kind of shortly thereafter. I mean, Chelsea haven't been great, but we've had momentum with Maresca, and I think changing things mid-season, it's a bit of a Chelsea trope. Like we're very used to it as Chelsea fans, but it doesn't feel great. If it was a kind of an A-list manager, like a manager coming in under Abramovich, an Ancelotti, a Mourinho, or Conte, someone like that coming in, I think we'd be a lot more positive about it. I think Rossini's, done well at Strasbourg, but let's be honest, he wasn't on the shortlist of any other club in the Premier League. So it's a little underwhelming. And feels a little bit Graham Potterish. That's probably doing Graham Potter a disservice. But he has some quite forward-thinking ideas, and I think has played really good football at Strasbourg and has history with some of the Chelsea players. So with that in mind, I think you have no choice but to get behind him, and I really hope he does well. But it doesn't seem positive, and feels like a step backwards from a team that won like potentially a nothing trophy, but also like the World Club Cup is better than nothing. So to hire someone that's not got a history of winning, is a really inexperienced manager, it doesn't feel like the direction we need, and feels like we really are a club that's kind of setting ourselves up just to make money with kind of selling players on versus being a club that's going to challenge for the title. I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, it's like the American baseball equivalent of making the minor league manager the new manager of the major league team is what it feels like, right? They're like, hey, we know this guy, let's just bring him over here, kind of a deal. So it is odd in that sense. But speaking of, being in the business of just making money and not winning games and stuff, Ayo, let's come to you real quick. So your guy, in a typical Portuguese, Maresca did something similar, but not at the Portuguese level, Mourinho level that Amarim took it to in terms of the press conference. It's basically pretty much a resignation press conference like Conte did with like Tottenham and stuff. I guess the same question to you. I know the week before you guys were talking about, is he a fraud or is he not, and what aspects that you guys didn't like about him and stuff. But one, are you for the decision? Because I know for Ten Hag, for example, you definitely were. And how about the timing of it?
Definitely for the decision. I think the timing is terrible because it should have been done. I said this on here. I've said this so many places. It should have been done after Europa League. It should have been done then. last season showed how much of his ideas aren't that great. But the weird thing is, this season it's been okay. It's just been okay. Like it's all the underlying numbers where we are. It's okay. But the reality is, he wasn't fired for the results, right? I'm going to play the blinder here. He really, really played the blinder in the sense that he took advantage of the fact that he didn't want to work here anymore. And of course, he wanted to quit because he wanted to get paid. He wanted a severance, so he wasn't going to quit. Even though he was telling everybody he was going to quit every time. We all knew, it was just he played the blinder. It was just a ruse. He was never going to quit. So he did. He played the blinder on Ineos. He really played the blinder. Like always saying in the press conference, and immediately it got to the point where things were going to leak, of course, because that's what happened, right? Things started leaking about the fact that Wilcox and Ratcliffe were trying to interfere in like how he's going to go back to a back four, play 4-3-3, blah blah blah, and all of a sudden now he's getting mad when he told us a couple of weeks ago he was going to change. So why is he getting mad about it? He played a blinder. He played an absolute blinder. I think the reality that what really pissed him off was the fact that he wanted Semenyo. That's where all of this came from. He wanted Semenyo. The board is like, nah, not this. There's no money for Semenyo this January. We're going to do our long-term summer in the summer. And he was pissed because he saw the fact that he probably was not going to end the season very well at some point. So yeah, he played a blinder, made it look like there was this big blow up when there wasn't. There wasn't a big blow up. He played a blinder because he wanted to leave the job. So from an Ineos point of view, it looks really bad on them now. They've gotten like three big decisions wrong. Hiring and firing of Ashworth from Solly. I mean, we cutted them for like 3-4 months, best in class. Then we fire him 3 months later. Ten Hag, that should have gone when they wanted to fire him. He wins the FA Cup. They change. They make a U-turn. They give him they trigger the 1-year extension. They fire him 3 months later. And I'm worried. He didn't want to come halfway through the season. Whether I wanted him or not, he did not want to come. Just wait till the summer. They say no. They wanted him now. They wanted him now. They wanted him now. The football people advised against it, which is Wilcox said, nah. Ashworth said, nah. Like, he's too dogged with his back three. That's why Liverpool didn't want him. That's why West Ham did not want him. And United, then you get him. You buy players to fit systems. You buy 210s. You get rid of all our wingers, whether it's for bad behavior, Garnacho, whether it's for Rashford wanted to leave. But you get all your width. You get 210s. And then now you fired him now. And now we have no wingers. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So yeah. So
That's interesting. I did not know like the Semenyo thing was.
Yeah, Semenyo.
Like, did not see you guys in the equation, to be honest with you, because you probably would have to really overpay to a guy that's going to City. I know Liverpool were interested and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't know, like, do you think that's the missing piece though? Like, I look at United and I'm not like, yeah, they need somebody up top. It just feels like the midfield is in shambles.
And that's why they blocked it. That's why they blocked it, because the Wilcox knows that the key issue is the midfield. That's why they blocked. Like, the problem when you look at United, the first thing you don't think of is, oh, we need another attacker. We had at some point, I think up until like 2-3 games ago, we were the second highest scoring team in the league. We had, and even the underlying stats show that we were third best in the whole league. So it's like scoring goals wasn't our problem. It was lack of control. So yeah, we wanted Semenyo actually from the summer, by the way. Yeah. And that didn't work out. So that's when they pivoted to Mbeumo.
Let me ask you this, because like I say, I mean, I know we haven't had an episode since he did get fired with my brother. But, we we did, but the new appointment was not, appointments, whatever you want to call it. And I know he's livid about it. I'll make fun of him more than an hour over here as well about it. But where are you at with that? We're like, let's bring the old gang back. Does anybody remember when we were winning? Why don't we bring those guys back and maybe they'll make it happen, kind of a deal? Like, where are you at with that in terms of like the replacement? Because, like in Jay's situation, like he said, they have a replacement at least lined up. It might not be the ideal or whatever, or might be like the guy we were after, but in January, it's not like you get a lot of options anyway in terms of being able to get a top manager.
Halfway through the season, firing a manager, we have very few like past like record of it going well. Very few.
Yeah.
Tuchel, when he won Champions League, playing a defensive formation, of course, N'Golo Kante. It was that Champions League was more about N'Golo Kante, right, and his run. And Solskjaer was the only one, and even towards the end, it fell apart, right? He had that run where he won like 14 games or whatever, but then he fell apart and still did not make Champions League. So we have very few. So my point is, I hate firing the managers halfway through the season because just from a tactical point of view, it is very hard to switch a team that's been trained in something completely different halfway through the season. Like when it comes to like on the ball, build up play, and out of possession, it's very hard. It's a very hard thing to do. So that's why typically when you find manager halfway through the season, especially been there for over a year now, you typically get a regression. Now bringing Carrick, it's like who else would have come? That's the problem. Who else would have come? Who else would have
I'm having way
agreed to
too
those
much fun
terms?
with this.
Sounds like Ollie wanted it.
Yes. So Carrick or Ole, I would prefer both of them together. I think a lot of United fans were kind of on that both of them together. But the reality is that's not what Ineos wanted. That's not what both of them. Both of them did not want that. They're managers of their own now. Nobody wants to be assistant of anybody, right? So I'm fine with it. I don't think it's going to go well. I'll be clear. I don't think it's going to go well. I think at best, maybe end up in Europa at this point, because I think we're going to go backwards. Because coming back to because the whole back for back three, I said it here many times, right? For me, that's never been my problem. You can play back for back three, is how you execute, how you platform your players, how you platform your best players, how you profile players in different positions. That's what matters. Back for back three, it means nothing, right? It's just a starting point. Yeah. Because shape changes in and out of possession. So, but for me, when I think of this, is like, I think at best, maybe we finish Europa places. At worst, you finish out of Europe completely, So
yeah, because it felt like they were close. I know, like you say, my brother was pleasantly surprised. But I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, it was almost like there's two guys. Neither one of them is not manager enough. Maybe we'll bring both of them and we'll get one manager kind of a deal. I'll ask the neutrals over here. Sully, we'll start with you as a team who's used to having two coaches on the sideline at all times by the pitch over there. How do you look at both cases, like the Chelsea case, the United? Because they're different yet the same in some ways.
Like the Chelsea one, the writing was on the wall. Like there were a lot of reports that Maresca was unhappy. A couple of weeks ago, this was something. It was just a matter of time. I kind of thought, Almiron was gonna hold, or what am I talking about, Almiron? God,
it's been a tough day for you, man.
My favorite Atlanta son, his name is stuck in my head. But the Man U situation, I think, is different because everybody saw him getting fired way earlier, and now it's like, wait a sec, did you guys just look at Chelsea and decide, hey, we should probably fire our guy too? It just doesn't make a lot of sense, as Io was saying, to do it right now. This is arguably the worst point of the year to do it. I mean, Chelsea, they've got 2 or 3 teams waiting in the wings. They could play whatever formation their manager is going to put them through, whoever they hire. But with Man U, they're kind of set in stone. They're going to be an interesting case. And again, what I think is arguably the most insane part of this is neither of these teams are bad. Chelsea's in 8th and Man U's in 7th. Like, what is going on? Yes, the results have not been up to the standards, I think, of what both these clubs are trying to achieve. But at the same time, the parity in the Prem is so strong, and simply maintaining that position above 5th place is great. No, I don't think anybody's going to catch Arsenal, but simply being able to go play European football next year is a big deal. And so I don't get sort of this pivot. And, like Timogen, like you were saying, for Man U, bringing Michael Carrick back, what the
Bringing
heck?
sexy back.
Well, yeah, was Johnny O'Shea not available? Like, what are we doing here? I don't get it. From the Chelsea perspective, I understand it because it seems like there was a massive rift between manager and management. And we've seen Chelsea do this how many times over the last 10 years. With Man U, it's like, again, they didn't do it when the time called for it, and now almost seem like they backpedaled and were like, oh yeah, that's right, we can fire this guy. Chelsea just fired their guy, we can get rid of ours. So it's kind of chaotic. I don't see the rationale. I don't see the rationale because with those two managers, like, again, they're holding you in 7th and 8th place. I mean, looking at Champions League, Chelsea's going to qualify for the next round of Champions League. Chelsea is sitting above Barcelona on goal differential, and Barcelona looks like world beaters right now.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I don't understand the logic. But as we've seen over the last 10 years, these are not the most two logical clubs in England.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the case for, like, Glenn, I mean, as an outsider looking in, now you must be like, God damn, these guys are spending all this money on going through managers like crazy, watching this as a Brentford fan there. It's just, like, for people who say slut out and stuff, that's kind of like my thing, where you have to have, if you're doing that, it should only be because there's this other person that you really want and you want to bring it in. Not because, I know, you just need a change. Like, it's like you're getting a different haircuts kind of a deal is what United is doing, it feels like. And it's temporary. I mean, I don't know how temporary Chelsea is. To me, it feels temporary too, because I feel like it does feel like a minor league manager, that guy is going to have a shorter leash than anybody else that came to Chelsea with a name and a resume. But, like, oh yeah, what is your take, Glenn, in terms of, like, Chelsea and United's?
Yeah, it's interesting to describe Rosinia as temporary when it's a 6-year contract, right? That's definitely another one of these problems.
That's just the Chelsea way. They sign everybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Whether they're 18 or 40, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And you got clubs like Newcastle and us, where you just have backed the same manager in the case of Frank and Eddie Howe, and obviously now Andrews. You've just shown a little bit of patience, and you've kind of, there's been ups and downs at both clubs, but it's been nice that we've both been in positions where our manager's job has not been in any serious risk, at least as far as I know, with you, Sully. So, it's fun, just to kind of have a drink, sit on the sidelines, watch these kind of, fires explode. Like, and as you said, I mean, they both don't feel like, neither of these managers, we could be wrong with Rosinia. I don't know, that maybe it wouldn't surprise me if he surprises us. It would not surprise me if Rosinia does very, very decently at Chelsea, but they don't really feel like the managers you kind of like, you back to really get you a load of silverware, right? And in Carrick's case, like, of course, like, that's not his role. He's literally been appointed caretaker, and like, that's kind of it. And like, as you said, Ayo, like that, it just completely destabilizes your season. I think you're really right to look at the season. Well, now we're going to go back, because what you had with Amorim, yes, there were issues with systems and personalities and all this stuff, right? And I completely agree with you. But you were starting to see ever so slightly this season, like, the fruits of some of the labor, right? You just looked a little bit more consistent this season. United last season was like a bit of a laughing stock, was up and down. And hey, you've had massive lows, right? It's always caveated with like the Grimsby result or something absolutely outlandish like that, right? That's why Amorim, you're just not going to be a legendary United manager and go get beat by Grimsby. Those things, they're just like, it just doesn't work together. But it is a ridiculous time to change manager. All I would say is, like, it seems like in the case of both Maresca and Amorim and Nuno back at Forest, these are three managers that have very publicly come out and they have said, hey, this system is not working administratively. I have issues with the owner. And all three of these managers, with the volatile personalities that govern each of the three clubs, they have known that they say this and there was a huge chance of getting fired. So it's really interesting that we've had three managers that have basically said, despite managing big clubs, right, even Forest, big club, huge success last season, right? All three of these managers have been having such a poor time in terms of relationships with, colleagues and like people higher up in the club. they're willing to turn their back. Like this is like, you know, self-inflicted. Each one of these three has come forward and said in very thinly veiled language, I don't want to manage here anymore. It's a mess. And I just think it's really funny to get that three big clubs in a row. And I mean, yeah, what does that tell you about, like, you know, how football clubs are run these days? What does that tell you about, like, who's really in charge? Like, and it also tells you that managers are not invincible. You kind of have to be a Fergie-like figure to be able to come out and say something like that. There are not many managers in the league right now, I think, that could come out and criticize the club above them and have any job security. And you could say that's a normal workplace. If many of us came out and criticized our boss and tweeted about them and said they were terrible bosses, you would have issues, right? You can't just do that. But you get fired. So it's an industry like many others, right? But it's really interesting to see these three examples in what to me feels like a very short space of time. Basically, managers saying, I can't put up with this anymore, but as you said, Io, you better pay for me to go. Because they're not resigning. They're basically saying, please fire me, which I think is so crazy. These are huge clubs. These are dream jobs, but they're so misrun that it's just untenable. And I think that's a really, really interesting takeaway from all three of those clubs.
I was gonna say, if we were going to get fired and get like $5 to $10 million sitting on our ass, we'd be
start tweeting, put it out there now,
and just get on freaking Twitter right now. Tweet away.
I mean, four managers.
Yeah. So, okay, I actually had two things, and one was building off of Glenn's point about, you know, Grimsby beating Man U back in the fall. You know, again, I think this goes to the parity because Oliver Glasner just lost to Macclesfield Town. You know, like that. I think there's a lot more parity, and I think where, you know, a manager like Fergie, I might get crucified for saying this. I don't think a manager like Fergie had the opportunity to lose to teams like that because I don't think there was the same level of parity. I think even these, like, it's hard to say non-league there's parity, but I think, you know, the game has elevated itself so much that, you know, the guys who play for Macclesfield Town, they could be, you know, they could have been a Premier League starting side in like the 60s or the 70s. You know what I mean? With just like the growth of the game. So interesting to see. But for you, Timogen, I've got a question for you. Is Slot the next manager on the hot seat, especially now that Xabi Alonso is available? Is Slot on the hot seat, and is Alonso looking to come back and rejoin Liverpool?
I hope to God not. I mean, I'm not a big fan of this. I've been kind of like raving about, like, kind of like trashing fans who are almost hoping, well, yeah, see, deluded Steve knows what's up. But yeah, I just don't think. I think all Liverpool has to do is look at United, look at Chelsea, and say, yeah, this is not the fucking way. So, I mean, there's so many examples of seeing what's not the way. And I don't even think the Xavi thing is something that's coming from the fans, because we romanticize about like ex-players and stuff like that. And that's something that I don't even know if Liverpool wanted Xavi, and I don't know if they would go back to him, because, you know, there was never an offer on the table, and he just came out and said, once we decided to go to slots, yeah, I'm out of this, by the way. It's like, okay, good. Like, that's fine. Like, we're going here anyway, so you can be out. That's fine. So I don't think so. And I hope to God not, because I think Liverpool's current issues, which the bleeding has stopped as far as I'm concerned for the most part compared to what you were going through like a month and a half ago. You just need time. You just need health. You just need to get this team back together. It's not really on the manager alone. A lot of the manager criticism comes from, that's what people can pick on, you know, like, you can't get rid of all the players, so let's just get rid of the manager kind of thing. You know, people considering this brand of, like, you know, like soccer, football, whatever we're going to call it, we play now, boring. I personally think it's not a whole lot different than last year, except the result. You know, we were winning 2-0. Those were not like ridiculously exciting, but, you know, 2-0, put the other team to sleep, put me to sleep, put the dogs to sleep, and then doesn't matter because you get 3 points at the end, and that's what wins you the titles. So I'm definitely against it. Anybody in like in the chat right now that regularly watches like the morning shows or the Monday Night Podcast, no, I'm probably one of the few ones left who has slots in. But that's the issue. I think what happens is, I mean, like, you know, Jay, I mean, teams that change managers frequently know, sadly, fans bring it to a point where you can only fail. And I'm hoping Liverpool does not get there. Like, it's like, you know, they're waiting for a failure or nothing is good enough. Like, you know, like the Barnsley game is not probably a good example, but doesn't matter like what we do. If you win this game, well, you should have won that. Okay. We played good in this game. Well, you should anyway. So it doesn't matter. But then if you don't do it, it gets over criticized. I just hope Liverpool is not at a stage where, you know, we can't get it back. But honestly, who cares? After, in the big grand scheme of things, who cares what fans on social media think? It's more people in the locker room. I don't see a team quitting on a manager personally, but people see what they want to see when they're looking for things, and that's probably like the main issue.
Gotta say though, I mean, Xavi's that's a tasty, you know, that's a tasty treat right there. It's not like Carrick, who, you know, isn't proven. Xavi Alonso's proven. I mean, he ended the Bayern streak. Like that by itself, I think, gives a lot of credibility.
Slot ended the City streak.
Yeah, true. Very
You know,
fair.
that's why that's what people
Fair.
say. Like, he's proven. Okay, like this guy proved it here. Like, he won the title.
But would you
here.
say Klopp ended the City streak?
Well, yes, definitely as well. But the team that Slot won with, Klopp did not win with. And, you know, people say, oh, the league was down. Well, so was Bayern when he won the league as well. He wasn't the same Bayern and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, you can make a case for it, I guess. It's definitely, I mean, the bar is very low if you're comparing him to Carrick and freaking like Fletcher and Ole and stuff. So, I mean, I probably look better when you compare it like that. I just don't think Liverpool changes that midstream, like for all the reasons we talked about before. But Ayo, before you go, I want to ask you that. I mean, you kind of like briefly mentioned it, but where does it go from here? Like, because I don't look at that team and say it's the manager. You know, we look at the squad. I mean, famously, my brother and I did a live watch along for the Spurs United game. I might have talked about this before. And we were talking about who we would take from United to Fenerbahce in the Turkish league, right? And we could not come up with one player that we'd be like, you know what, we'd love to have him there. And I think, you know, like you look at Liverpool, you look at Chelsea, you look at Newcastle. I think we can pick a bunch of players that we would take, like either because of performance, either because of personality. Like we said, like we would not want him. Like, yeah, Bruno Fernandes is good enough to play for Fenerbahce, but we would not want his personality in the club, kind of a thing, right? So when I look at that club, and I know my brother is fuming, I can't wait for the rival bros tonight. But anyway, like, so the problem feels like it's just the squad. It's all the way up. The middle management was kind of like the least of the problems, but that's the easiest thing to change, is constantly the middle management over there. Do you see it getting better, knowing how things are run from above?
I don't see it getting better. I would like to say, though, I think I wanted to make this clear. Maybe I didn't make this clear. Even though I'm not trying to make excuses for Ineos, right? Amorim made it an untenable situation. He had to get fired, right? He played like as they played. He played the blind, and that's why you can see that it's a mess, because they had no plans of firing him. There was no contingency plan. They had no plan of firing midstream. They were going to wait to the end of the season, see where we ended up, and maybe even let it continue. That was the plan. So all this breakdown happened within a week. So it escalated very quickly. So that's one thing I wanted to say. Where do I see going from here? At best, like I said, I think Carrick can be okay, and we finish at the Europa, maybe conference, just because there's a lot of holes in the squad, and it can be mitigated by the fact that we will be playing one game a week. But I think all of that will balance out, because I expect a couple of the other English teams to fall out of Europe by, like, I think Chelsea will probably not go far. Chelsea will probably out by like maybe the first knockout stage. Newcastle will not go too far. So by that time, I think.
Damn, dude, I was firing left and right.
No, that's what I see about this. I'm looking at the score. I don't see them going too far in Champions League. I don't. So because of that, when they fall out, the advantage we have of playing one game a week is going to go out the window.
What you mean. Okay.
That's what I mean. So I think we have that advantage in rest, but I just think there's too many holes in the squad, especially in the midfield. There's too many holes in the squad. So because of that, I can see us at best making Europa. I'll be shocked to my bones. I'll be happy if we make Champions League, but I'll be shocked. I don't see that happening. I don't.
Let's hope not. I don't want to hear it from my brother, but yeah, let's hope not. I don't think so. I think you're right on that one. He would agree with you on that one as well. I think it's not. It's looking kind of dim at the, which is weird because he was all giddy like maybe a month and a half ago when
October, when
you
won
guys
three-
were briefly above us, and he was like, the tables have
Three games.
turned.
3 games in a
And-
row. 3 games in a row. That's like I said, this league is interesting. I mean, 2 weeks ago I said it. All you need is 3 games and your life. Brentford won maybe 3 or 4 games. Brentford are 5th. You just need to win 3 games in a row. So yeah, there's so much parity in the league, like Solid said. It's so
But
much.
that dude's hair is safe for quite some time. It
Oh
feels.
yeah,
like.
yeah. Till next
Yeah.
season.
He
Till
almost
next
made an appointment, and it was like, you know what? Nah, cancel it.
I
Take
can,
it
I,
back, right?
I can even extend it to say, and I think I said this 2 weeks ago. I think Glenn will say when I said this. No team, maybe it was a different podcast. I said this actually. No team below Villa is going to be able to win 5 games in a row in the league. No team. Like you can remember that I said this in the Premier League. No team below Villa is going to win 5 games in a row to the end of the season. Just remember that I said this on this day. Just remember.
I hate that you're right. I
No
hate,
team.
I
sadly.
hate
None
that
of the team
you're
are that
right.
good enough to win 5. See Arsenal. Arsenal cannot win 6, 7. I think they got to 5 and they had a draw. Like no team can win 5 games in a row.
I think any team below Villa, I think you're being very generous. I would say no team below City, including Villa. Like in the past, they did 5 in a row. I don't think they're going to do it again.
I think they won 7 in a row, right? They did like 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yes, that's true. So that's
Right.
what end with that.
Well, we know for sure United won, so that's the good news that we can take away from this. Hey, Ayo, thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot for hopping on this week. Take care.
Take care, man.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you kind of briefly, Deluded Steve says, honest expectations. You kind of like try to look at the silver lining of the appointment over here. Let me ask you this. Come summer, will Chelsea fans be like, no, we need a name over here?
I mean, Deluded Steve says, I mean, he does talk a good game. And I mean, this is a fantastic opportunity for him. I think.
Oh, you should tune in the mornings, dude. I talk
about Chelsea. I think Chelsea fans are like trying to support him, but it is incredibly underwhelming. You got to give him a chance, but honestly, it's not a big name. We're used to big names. He hasn't won anything. We really want him to win something, but it really just this ownership model where they just want a yes man and they want medical team on. Like I was constantly frustrated with Maresca's substitutions. And now thinking back, it's like, was I really mad at Maresca for all these changes? Or was it the medical guy on the bench kind of whispering sweet nothings in his ear, limiting minutes because the directors of football are putting him on a game count or a minute count? And I don't know how to really grade Maresca with kind of some of that information in mind. But I guess moving forward, Rosinia's tactics, they seem interesting. I'm quite open to supporting him. We're going to like baptism of fire now. Like we got League Cup final or semi-final first leg tomorrow against Arsenal at home, then Brentford on the weekend. Realistically, we need to rack up some wins quickly. I think you'll hear a lot of I mean, we're expected to lose to Arsenal. That's a bit of a free hit, but we need to be beating Brentford considerably and getting back on form in the Premier League. And I think anything less, and we're going to start to hear rumblings quite soon.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I personally don't see it just because of how Chelsea is. I mean, the moment the manager starts turning things around and finally shaping the squad, it feels like you're like, you got to go. And then they bring in another one. Now his system, these guys are not going to fit. And it's like rinse and repeat, similar to like what United goes through. And that's why whenever people are like, oh, this manager has to go and stuff, if you don't have a backup plan that's very similar to this guy's plan, it's a rough transition. But let's hit the scores real quick, because I do want to get to some cup chats as well. We'll only hit our games right here. Well, right off the bat, it's you. Fulham 2, Chelsea 1. Was that the end of Maresca, or that was before Maresca?
That was before Maresca. That was the end of Maresca, or after the end of Maresca. Sorry, it was our under-21 coach, interim manager, with Liam Rosinia in the stands. I don't know why he didn't take charge, but with discipline once again, not being able to keep 11 players on the pitch. I think including Maresca, that's our 7th red card of the season, and you were talking about parity in the league, or Iowa, or someone was, right? Sully, you mentioned that. Like a lot, it's very difficult to win games in the Premier League with 10 men. We've tried it 7 times and haven't been terribly successful. We are the most used to playing with 10 men, but Fulham was a little too much for us with a caretaker manager as well. If Rossini does one thing, it brings a little more discipline so that we keep parity with 11 men on the pitch. We're going to have a much better chance of getting results. So
Chelsea's inventing their own parody. They're creating their own parody.
This is too easy. We'll play with your hand tied behind your back kind of thing. We'll take one guy off. We used to do that when it's like pickup games. Yeah, we'll play with one less guy. We'll give you him. Brentford 3, Sunderland 0. That's like a really solid win, knowing it's Brentford. Someone was asking, I don't know if it was Deluded Steve, but somebody was asking in the chat in terms of realistic expectations more than like dreams now in terms of getting a European spot. Is that realistic, Glenn, or is that like the team is not consistent enough to be able to set that goal yet?
Yeah, it's ambitious, but there's nothing wrong with that, having an aspiration, right? I'm sure that's probably what Keith Andrews is saying in the dressing room. Like, nobody's really expecting us to do this, but was anyone really necessarily expecting Villa to be third right now after the start to the season they had?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. They had an awful start to the season, and they're third, and they're just playing such good football. So, yeah, I don't know. I Deluded Steve saying we're going to get Europe. I'm gonna agree. Let's be.
I don't know. Positive. I would like to bring up that his name is Deluded Steve.
Not the best citation, is it, in a paper? No. We'll see. And I think it might have been Steve as well. Somebody also asked kind of what grade I'll be giving Andrews so far this season. It's got to be an A for a number of different reasons. Number one, the context in which he came to the club, as we've discussed a lot on here, big change in personnel and loss of some key players. Two, the league position is just incredible in the midst of everything. It's great. It's surreal for us to be in fifth place and to be there on merit, because as we've said on the show, we've strung together a couple of really impressive wins, and we're playing good football. We're scoring goals. We're delivering for the neutrals. I think we usually put on a pretty good show with our games, unless it's Brentford Spurs, in which case it's just a horrible rugby match, but that's fine.
I was shocked with that, by the way. I had high hopes for that game. That was
shocking. It was two managers who didn't want to lose to the other, right? That was the fundamentals. And Frank's job is, we'll get on it. I think he'll be the next to go without a doubt, but it's him or Nuno. But anyway, so not only have we kind of bossed it in terms of he's getting the best out of our squad. What I love about what Keith Andrews has done is he has brought some players like Jensen, like Janelt. These players were part of the championship team. They were part of our early Premier League team, and they've kind of taken a back seat in the last year or so, right? They've become kind of squad players, and maybe they're moving on. He has just injected so much confidence into the kind of existing players while still developing other players. For Thiago to be the record Brazilian goal scorer in the league, playing for Brentford, hitting that in January, it is absolutely crazy. And one more thing I'll just say on the A, not only has he delivered in the league, we made it to the League Cup quarterfinals and we got Man City away. What can you do? And, it's easy to kind of gloss over stuff like the FA Cup, right? We had a favorable draw. We might get onto it against Sheffield Wednesday. What I loved about Keith Andrews, he played a strong team. He didn't take it for granted. Sheffield Wednesday are in a horrible state financially. It's a disaster. He respected the cup. We comfortably beat them. And that just kept the momentum going. I just hate it when managers make these wholesale changes and just disrupt things. And it also showed we've got a more, despite losing our key players, we have got a squad that has more depth to it than any other season in the Premier League. And that's starting to really show. Will we make Europe? I don't know. Probably not. But what a great aspiration.
Well, let me answer this, though. How much of that this is what I want to as I look at Brentford, how much of it do you think, as a fan watching it, is a little bit of playing with house money and the freedom that kind of gives, because nobody expected him to do well after the manager change, like you said, after losing players and stuff? How much of that is, I know it's cliche, like every NFL team says it afterwards, even the huge 20-point favorite says, no one believed in us except us in the locker room and shit, even though they were 20 points favorites. But like, how much of it is that, do you think, they're playing with house money where it's very free, and will that turn on them when the expectations go up now and you're like fighting for a spot?
Yeah, well, it's not going to work for much longer, right? Because teams aren't going to underestimate us. I think a lot of pundits, a lot of probably opposition teams saw us as a real transition team this season, saw us as a bit of a weak team, as a soft team. You know, we're vulnerable, right? You lose Bumo, Visser, Norgard, Frank, you're vulnerable. That goes without saying. And the performance we put up against Notts Forest first game of the season seemed to prove that. We were 3-0 down, I think, by the end of the first half. Nightmare scenario. And that just really galvanized this kind of narrative, right? Brentford are washed this season. That was kind of the preseason narrative. What I would say in terms of playing with house money, I don't think any of the players, I don't think the manager, I don't think the owner obviously ever believe that narrative, right? And I think honestly, the feeling internally at the club is we want to make this season better than the last. I genuinely think that has been the internal message. And I think it's really starting to bear fruit now because we've just gotten used to playing as this redesigned squad, right? It's not Visser up front, it's Thiago. Even Damsgaard, our star player, has had a bit of an on-off season. Matthias Jensen is pulling the strings, looking like a luxury in the best possible sense, like a Rolls-Royce player in that midfield, right? As I said, what Frank did is develop these players, and what Andrews has been able to do is just maximize his squad. And really, we have got a squad, say the squad's about 20. When these players are getting on the pitch, I'm not seeing people really very often getting lower levels than here. You know what I mean? Whether they've been at the club for 5 years, for 6 months, he has really got us motivated, and I love that. And yeah, you know, Kelleher.
I was going to say, this must be an ongoing theme that I'm not aware of because Steve keeps bringing it up.
Look at this. I mean, so no, all I said at the start of the season, which I stand by, was he looked a bit jittery, and I think everyone would agree with that. He didn't have much presence, and that's fine. It's a new opportunity. It's different pressure. It's different expectation. I get it. He has really, really, really come into his own. I said from the get-go he was one of the best buys of the summer transfer window. I said that. I was a little disappointed 6 to 8 games in. His performances speak for themselves. He makes top saves. He is a penalty merchant, which you never say from the goalkeeper standpoint, do you? And you know, he just makes it look easy when he's playing at his best. So he's been great. And as I said, you know, it's just fantastic to see a squad thriving so much. And I hope we can keep pushing in the FA Cup as well, because we had a good draw in the next round. So I think let's just keep the momentum going in the FA Cup and the league, which is hard to do when push comes to shove.
I mean, the Henderson thing, I honestly Steve, I wouldn't consider it a failure. If you don't go with one of the big 4 boys over there, you kind of going uphill. I thought that was a great signing. I mean, I think he was very overlooked. I still see him as really the best captain I've seen at Liverpool. And we've seen some really good ones because he was a second coach on the pitch. And I'm sure, I guarantee you it helps Andrews a lot having a guy like that on the pitch, barking out orders and putting people where they should be and stuff like that. But Newcastle 4, Leeds United 3. Every Newcastle game, Newcastle has become the Spurs in some ways, where every game is crazy and fun to watch. Well, I mean, I can take it back. I just said in the good way. Well, maybe not. But old Spurs, where it was wide open, everybody scoring. What is the deal? What seems to be the problem with Newcastle?
Well, so Timogen, you don't know this, but I really hope I'm not reported to DCFS because I'm going to bring a little Newcastle fan into the world this April. And they're going to already be predisposed to the cardiac issues I'm suffering from watching this fucking team. What are back-to-back games? You have the Leeds game where Harvey Barnes just doesn't let us lose, and then we have the PKs against Bournemouth. I'll be honest, I have been very casual as a fan over the holiday season, a lot of stuff going on, but it's just not there. I mean, other than Voltamade and Vissa has kind of come along. I know a lot of people are kind of shitting on him on Newcastle social media, but I think he'll get there. But Ramsey and Alenga have just not come through. Yeah. Anthony Gordon has fallen off a cliff. He's not the same player that he was. Joe Willock, not the same purple run he was in last season and the season before. Hell, even Jacob Murphy is struggling. This is a team that, unfortunately, and as much as I love Eddie, this is a team that has passed its expiration date. Burns old, Trips is old. Cher is, if we get 2 more seasons out of Cher at this level, I'll be happy. We've got old guys, and the way Eddie plays puts so many miles
Yeah.
on these guys, and I think it's not sustainable the way Eddie is running this team, given who he brought in. It was awesome at the beginning when he brought these guys in as, hey, I've got a veteran team. I don't need to do a whole lot with them. I just need to get them to believe we're going to go out and play. Now these guys, the years are catching up on them. And there's going to need to be a massive overhaul. I mean, hell, we were playing Lewis Miley at right back today. That's never something you want to see. So I think our team, I think this was inevitable. And I'm going to be honest, I had not looked at the table. The fact that we are in 6th kind of blew me away, because we had been hovering, in that like 14, 15 spot for a while, and we're only 5 points out of that. So
Yeah.
what Io was saying with, like, you got to win 5 games in a row, I think that is super true. I don't think this is the best Newcastle team. I think 3.
You've won 3.
Yeah, but so we got 2 more to go. We got 2 more to go, Jamie, and we're playing in a lot of cups and a lot of other things going on right now.
I mean, you're next up. You got Wolves.
Right.
Well, that's
And
one.
then, yeah. Okay. Who then? Who? Wolves. Villa. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, but we always okay. So Wolves, I think, is a trap game. Wolves is a trap game. That is not a game, despite how shit Wolves is.
Yeah, they're starting to bounce too.
Right. They fight. They're gonna fight,
Yeah.
and it's like, how much does Newcastle have in the tank to put up against a scrappy team? Villa versus Newcastle, it's a coin toss. It's going to be settled one way or another. It's going to be a bloodbath. These are 2 teams that are very, very similar, but I think this, and it sucks having just done the summer we did. I think this summer is going to be very important for us, because I think we are going to have to keep cycling out some of these players. And my dream is that some of these players we have out on loan start to turn up for us. I really, really hope we can start pulling guys from loan, having them make, having them make contributions to our squad. But right now, it's the back where I'm the most worried, because we have an aged defense. We're playing Pope and Ramsdale, just depending on which one has the best game prior to the current game we're playing. Like, there need to be some changes. And the fact that we are in 6th, I think, does show how good of a manager Eddie is. I just don't think what he's doing is sustainable with the guys he has right now.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is Kazi says Wolves just found a bit of form, because I think, yeah, we barely beat him, then they got something out of United, right? And then they won a game. So they fight, like you said. It's not like an easy game, but it's one of those teams where, I mean, really, you should be able to beat. But I think you have a great point there. I mean, Kazi was talking about Jolinton, for example, but it is a system. It's very Klopp-like, where Fabinho aged 20 years in like 4 seasons, where those guys like Gordon and stuff is like, it's built on so much crazy energy at times. And when I watched today, for example, in the cup game, they look tired. Like, they don't have that energy that it takes to play that system.
You can't run a team on vibes. Like, you can't do that. That's not functional. Like, with like Livramento is getting injured every other game. I don't think he's sustainable. He could be a player that is outstanding, but you cannot rely on him. And that is an issue we have right now, is lack of reliability with most of our players. So we shall see. Glenn, I wanted to add one thing. Brentford is really reminding me of the Bears this season, and particularly, let me explain. Particularly one Reddit comment I saw that was like, the Bears are simply pretending to be a good team, and that's working for them. I think that's kind of how Brentford is. Brentford is just like, yeah, we're good. We're going to play. And what do you think of this Furrow guy coming in? This kid seems very, very interesting. 6'3", 18 years old. That's going to be an interesting signing.
Yeah, exciting. Same club that we got Thiago from. So happy days, Club Rouge. That's a pipeline to greatness so far. No, I'm excited. There's a lot of money for an 18-year-old who's pretty unproven, but it's a bargain if they turn out to be like even half decent, straight into the first team squad. And yeah, and what I would say, like, I don't even necessarily disagree with that quote, right, Sully? What I would genuinely say is we have benefited from playing some incredibly obliging defenses, right? I think I said this on the show 2 weeks ago, right? Add Sunderland to this list. Sunderland, Everton, Bournemouth, Wolves. Those are decent clubs, right? Those are decent Premier League clubs, right? All of them have beaten us before. And each of their defense was just... I was talking to my dad about this. We couldn't figure out if we just played a succession of clubs who were just kind of out of form, or are we the team that's putting them under pressure, pressing high, and forcing them into mistakes? I think it's a bit of both, because like the spaces that Sunderland, Bournemouth, Everton, and Wolves gave us some charity goals. I mean, it was incredible. Like, the defending at these clubs has been absolutely appalling. But you've still got to score, right? You've still got to get the goals. And when you have a player like Thiago, who is ruthless, right? His goals against Sunderland were outstanding. They were clinical, right? We're a team that is really willing to capitalize, to put our opposition under pressure and then capitalize when they do make mistakes. And not enough teams in the league can do that consistently for 3, 4, 5 games. So let's just see how long it goes on for. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's the time for him to go ahead. Were you about to say something, Sully? Go ahead.
Yep, yeah, I was gonna say, Jamie, with you, like, do you think there is like my club is sort of the happy medium between like money and vibes, whereas Glenn is all vibes. Your team is all money. Like, do you think, what weighs out more? Like buying the best players or just feeling it? Just feeling good.
Jamie is like, thanks.
That's a loaded question. I think. I mean, with money comes with money comes responsibility and expectation, right? And that's sometimes the death of you, right? So like when Chelsea spends $1 billion, it's like Chelsea spent $1 billion. We got to be up there, and realistically, that's not necessarily the goal of the club. I think. My favorite season at Chelsea was when we had Lampard in charge. We had all the kids, and I think we finished 6th or something. It was one of my favorite seasons because it was the academy transfer ban, COVID season, and that was everyone was behind the team, and that was fantastic. You get like little pockets of fans that kind of, I mean, with every club it's probably the same, but pockets of fans that either for the manager, against the manager, and money doesn't solve things necessarily unless it's far more money than anyone else, and you have a competitive advantage in that. Like when Abramovich came in and changed the game in 04-05, and it took the other clubs some time to catch up. That was great because we're the only ones that had the purse that could bring in that amount of players, and we just basically walked the league and conceded no goals. I think it's a different game at the moment, and you're never going to have that much of an advantage. So money equals pressure, which I think can cause you to fire your manager every 5 minutes and then end up where Chelsea are right now.
So you're telling me you need to build your team on the power of friendship next summer. That's what I'm hearing from you. Excellent.
You need to buy correctly.
Buy friends.
It helps if you can buy players who are unbelievable talents and don't get injured. That's a good one.
I mean, money helps. It doesn't hurt. It's just like anything else.
Yeah.
Money sure does help, and it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
but it doesn't guarantee it. And I think, Chelsea, United for the longest time are like good examples where just because you spend, that's why, when people give Pep a lot of shits about like a wallets manager and like checkbook manager and all that kind of stuff, doesn't guarantee winning. Mind you, they do spend more than everybody else, but you got to spend it smart at the same time. I mean, Chelsea have spent a lot of freaking money, man, where you would assume that it would bring success if spent wisely. But I mean, I guess that's my thing to you, Jamie. Is it because it's not being spent wisely? Because I feel like part of it is because you keep changing managers, the money you spent on the guy that fit one guy doesn't really work for the other guy, so it's like a rinse and repeat.
That can be it. We get fleeced quite a lot. We spend a lot on players that you think that, like, we give a lot of money to Brighton that for players, and it's you think, oh, he's worth 50 million. We spend 100. Like why are we doing this? So we've got two midfielders that would cost over 100 million. It's easy to spend as much as we do when we're paying those prices, but we're also we are a good seller. So our net spend, like we almost kind of we take that spend and it's almost like girl math where you get something, you get cash and then you spend it on something that doesn't count because you'd already spent that money. I think our net spend, I haven't got the table in front of me, but is lower than like more this season than Liverpool. I know you didn't spend much for the past 2 seasons, but like Arsenal and Man United are ahead of Chelsea in net spend. But you think given the amount of money we have spent on the squad, we would have more to show for it than when you look at our lineup and you look at the defense and you look at the goalkeeper, like how many teams would Sanchez get in goal? How many players would some of our centre backs get in? Like, we still don't have a striker really. Like, you'd think you'd have tackled some of that, some of those weaknesses given the amount of money we'd spent.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Kazi says, and I think, that's partially the problem is that you guys do sign a lot of young talent, but it almost feels like, like if you convert it to American sports, like they're trying to build it like a baseball team. They're signing all these prospects and they're gonna be really good. But I feel like, football is different where you need a balance. You need some kind of maturity and leadership with the young. You gotta have that blend because when it's just kids, not only that, you're losing the kids. They're never really reaching the potential. And it feels like Chelsea gives up on them, sells them to someone, and then they start reaching their potential there because they go into an environment that actually helps them reach that potential.
Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne. But I mean, we just talked about Jordan Henderson, right? Chelsea doesn't necessarily have that. Even the older players are slightly younger, like a Reece James, who seems to be trying to do that in his behavior on and off the field. And I said field instead of pitch. Wow.
You're like a 2-minute ban in the box.
That's why I was really disappointed when we got rid of Thiago Silva, because he really was that second coach on the pitch and was that experienced leadership voice that we needed in the locker room. And we just don't have that at the moment. I think as this team grows together, I think we are gaining experience and our average age just naturally goes up. I think that's going to bode us well. But having as many youngsters as we have, with that lack of experience, lack of maturity, hasn't done well. I think we went with a more niche example. We went the Haas F1 route, putting 2 rookies in the car and see if it works. No, it doesn't. You need an experienced driver.
Tarkin says Arsenal will always be the biggest club in London. Hey man, you should join us on the panel as the Arsenal fan, because we had a couple. And then once you guys stopped scoring from set pieces last year, they just disappeared on us, never to come back again, right? Like we had a regular Arsenal appearances on the show, and once the set piece goals stopped last year, we kind of like lost them for good over here. Speaking of, Arsenal 0, Liverpool 0 is the last game. I mean, I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised, especially with like the second half, maybe because I was expecting the worst from that game. But I thought it was another step in the right direction that you keep taking despite kind of like missing a lot of pieces. I think it's starting to work. Maybe it's kind of like, like me kidding myself, but I do see some improvements. But every time you see an improvement, you have another injury that, like the Bradley injury now, just when you felt like, okay, Bradley and then Frimpong there, it just kind of like goes back. But, Kazi is starting a fire. Chelsea are now bigger than Arsenal. I don't know. Mindset wise, I would say Arsenal probably has the worst mindsets. I mean, Spurs fans are more optimistic and positive about their team, which makes 0 sense, but that's kind of like how it works, unfortunately. But couldn't really get much to the cup, but it won't be right if we do not do this. I haven't done this. I didn't want to take away the copyrights to the Rival Bro show, so I had to leave it over here, unfortunately, behind me. I don't know, maybe we'll do something with Paqueta or something like that. I'll throw him in the casino when we do it with my brother. But okay.
He's off to he said, I've had enough of West Ham, hasn't
yes,
he? I've had enough. I've had enough.
Is it
Thanks
official?
for the memories. He's agreed personal terms with the Brazilian team, and West Ham are like, yeah, we might kind of need you for this relegation fight. He's like, yeah, no, don't really feel like that. Thanks for the support during the betting and everything, and I'll see you. Thanks.
I'm gonna bet on you guys getting relegated. I think it's what I'm off to make a bet on the West Ham relegation. Okay, Tonali's picks. Let's do this over here. United City, that's a good game, but I'm not getting up at 6:30 for that. Unfortunately, not on a Saturday. Some good games. Chelsea, Brentford. I don't even know if there's like necessarily an upset on that one. Tottenham, West Ham, Leeds, Fulham, Forest, Arsenal, Wolves, Newcastle. Oh, I hate to say it, but that's where I'm going, I think. Villa, Everton, Brighton, Bournemouth. We'll start with you, Sully. Where is Tonali putting the money?
Can you pull that back up again? Oh boy, I think. Oh man, I don't want to pull up DraftKings. Is Fulham favored over Leeds? You know
I
what?
would think Leeds would be a home favorite on that one, personally, but
Screw it. Forest over Arsenal. I'm taking Forest victory over Arsenal. That's where I'd put my money. I'm not doing a parlay tonight. Forest straight up over Arsenal.
yeah, man. After I left, you guys got really into this doing parlays and shit.
No, I have ADHD and I'm indecisive. That's the problem.
Ozzy is going with Sunderland beating Palace. I don't think that's an upset, is it? I think it would be an upset if Palace beats Sunderland, first of all, because it's Palace is away. Looks like that's probably why I say that. But Jamie, what do you have?
I was going to go with Forest being a banana skin, but I'll keep it interesting. And I'll pick Sully's from earlier in the show. I think Wolves will get something at Newcastle. I think it's ambitious to say they'll win, but I think they'll get a point.
I like it. It's tough this week, isn't it? There's nothing really screaming.
I was going to go with Wolves as well, actually, but now he's making me look around. I like Ryan's too. Everton over Villa.
I like that. I also think. Point. Yeah, and I think the game to be watching in terms of who's going to be sacked next. It's the Tottenham West Ham game. Oh, that is really interesting. If I'm going to go for my Tonali's for West Ham to get a positive result there, and for that to be Frank's last game. Somerville goal, 1-0 West Ham. Frank out by the morning. That's what I'm thinking.
That would be a good bet. Very specific.
Yeah, very specific.
That's the parlay.
We've been developing. Tamusha, we've been developing since you've been gone.
Polymarket, boom.
Oh man, this one is tricky. I'm gonna go with Wolves too, though. I think they get something out of it. I don't know if they get 3 points out of it, but especially because you guys played that game today. And the way that game went, I do think they'll have more time on it. I think Wolves get something out of that because I think they got something going. Not for long, probably, but at least some vibes going, as you would like to say. Vibes that Chelsea don't have.
And the game today, like I know we're not going to get a chance to talk about the cup. But that game today drove me nuts because we kept attacking, and that's why we gave up the second goal. Like that's an issue. Like Eddie, take the L, hang on to it. Live to fight another day. Every game is not life or death, and that was an issue today, and it bit us in the ass because we're down 2-0, and our players are going to be fucking gassed by the time we get to Sunday.
Also, the main question I wanted to ask about the cup, I didn't want to go into the matchups and stuff like that, but we have like a mixed crew here. Kind of wanted to get your guys' takes because I do find like there's normally a trend. I wanted to see the trend is over here too. I know historically FA Cup means a lot more. Like Glenn, I'll start with you. So it does mean a lot more, especially in the UK and stuff. How much of an importance do you put to FA Cup over like the League Cup, EFL Cup, whatever the hell you want to call it, Cup? I think that by itself says that FA Cup is better. It's always been FA Cup.
Definitely. No, I think the FA Cup is much more significant with its history, with just, it's part of British football culture in a way that the League Cup just isn't, and that's fine. I would say that the FA Cup, with the Premier League just becoming all the more competitive with big teams, and it's funny they went out as an example point, teams like United, who did crash out to Brighton, when teams of the stature of Man United or Spurs or whoever you want, right, teams that are going to get nowhere near winning the Premier League this season, what do they want from a season, right? You want some silverware, right? And it can be the Europa League. If you're Spurs, you get the kind of the Conference League, maybe if you're Chelsea, West Ham, whatever. But I do think the FA Cup has perhaps more significance now for some of these bigger top 6, top 8 teams in the Premier League, because like it's an opportunity to transform your season in a way that the league, if you're not going to make, top 4, if you're not going to make Champions League, like that's the end of your season, right? Fans are devastated. If you can finish 8th, even as a solid bigger team, but win the FA Cup, that is a season that fans will still remember, right? If you finish 17th and win a cup, like Ange, it's just not enough. And it is what it is. But I do think some of these like teams that maybe even 5-10 years ago who were just so assured, when that top 4, right? It was top 4, then it was top 6.
Yep.
And now we're seeing teams really disrupt this, right? This hierarchy feels very kind of artificial now. When you get teams in those categories having to fight for every 3 points in the league, they're just starting to look at the FA Cup and be like, wouldn't this be nice to win this? And it's also exciting because you're going to get teams like Crystal Palace who just absolutely like boss it and come away with this like, era-defining win for their fans, right? And that gives you a chance to then go into get a positive result in the Community Shield, right? So I do think it's a competition, at least in my sense, it's maybe had a bit of a renaissance the last 3-4 years, I think, maybe even post-COVID. Like you're getting the fans back in the stadiums, you're getting these great upset narratives that sell really well in America. America loves these underdogs. They love the FA Cup over here. It makes a lot of sense, right? So I don't know. I think it's a trophy that has this enduring legacy, and I think it's actually a bit more in vogue than it was even 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, I think because of the history, like it has, I mean, I know it's like way above here compared to the other one is just a trophy over there, but a FA Cup. I think really the Premier League has become so much bigger. I think the FA Cup has stayed where it's at, but the Premier League has gone so big worldwide that it has become much more important. So the gap between like winning the league and winning the FA Cup has become totally different. I mean, because the FA Cup, I think, has a little bit of, I mean, Sully, to me, it reminds me of like March Madness a little bit over here, where there's like crazy upsets. You're like, this is fun and stuff. But like as a Newcastle fan and a fan, obviously, over here, if I said, hey, there's this trophy, do you care which one for Newcastle to win? Or you're like, doesn't matter to me, either one of them are trophies?
I was going to use that exact same analogy, and it even almost tracks even harder, because by the time you get to the FA Cup, quarterfinals and semifinals, it has whittled itself down to really, the best teams and then like 1 or 2 surprises, which is still fun. It's still very engaging for a team. As much as I would love to be back-to-back Carabao Cup winners, I'd rather win the FA Cup this year. We already have a Carabao Cup. Might as well get an FA Cup. And like you said, the narrative for underdogs is so strong here that I've got friends who have gotten into soccer because of Welcome to Wrexham. And they're almost more focused on the FA Cup games because they're like, wait, these are teams, like I follow Wrexham because of this TV show. Now I'm following that table, and I want to see where that table is in the FA Cup. So it's an interesting kind of switch up, because for a while the FA Cup was kind of like, at least in my opinion, it was Premier League or bust. Like there was nothing else that mattered. And as I've matured, as I've understood the game more, FA Cup I realize is more important. But outside of me, I think the FA Cup has taken on a much more global and a much more special place for a lot of these, for a lot of fans, because you get the upsets, and there is this sort of everybody's in it. Just throw where I live in northern Illinois, very close to a town called Hebron. Hebron's claim to fame is they won, I want to say it was the 1954 Illinois State basketball tournament. And the reason that, and this was back before there were like tiers, so they were having to beat all like the big Chicago teams. They had 9 guys on their roster, and 3 of them were brothers. So like related to each other. These guys are, that's the beauty of a thing like the FA Cup, is everybody's got a chance. Everybody starts on the same sort of footing, and see what happens. And that narrative goes a long way here in the States.
Is that the coach? Because that's the scenario I envision.
No,
there.
I think it might have been their uncle. I'm not joking about this. I'm not joking. Like, it's a town of like 250 people, and that's about 75 more than they had when they won this tournament. So
That's
everybody's on
crazy.
this. It's nuts. Great documentary. It's called I want to say it's called like They Are Giants or something.
Green
But-
Giant? Is this the one, 1952 Green Giants?
Yes, that's them. I believe so. Yes.
Look at deluded Steve, man. He's like freaking Chat GPT over here.
He's our fact checker.
Jamie, how about you?
I think
Obviously, we have a big game tomorrow, but
traditionally, it's always been the FA Cup, right? Cup final day was like the day, like for many people, like really older than me, but like it was the day, and the FA Cup was almost as big, if not like very close to the Premier League, or before the Premier League existed, right? I think since the Premier League come in, all the money, like it's kind of taken on a life of its own and left the cups behind. And so the FA Cup and League Cup are somewhat close together, but FA Cup has an identity, it has history, has legacy, that edges it. I think they're both kind of in a similar category, that they're not the Premier League, but you'd much rather win the FA Cup because of the history and the legacy that goes along with it, rather than the cup you can't necessarily remember who the sponsor is from year to year. It's like Carling, Coca-Cola Cup back in the day, Worthington Cup. I think, the League Cup, I think they're both trophies. So, I mean, it's enough to save a manager. I just asked Ten Hag, right? And I to Glenn's point, I don't know why a lot of teams that realistically are not going to win the league don't go all in to try and at least gain some momentum in a league competition. I mean, FA Cup is. I said it edges it. It's FA Cup easily over the League Cup, but both of them are still trophies, right?
I think so. I mean, in terms of, I think it has, when the season ends, it has a better ring to it that you won the FA Cup kind of thing, as opposed to whatever the League Cup is called that year. But yeah, I think you're right. And like similar to Glenn, I was very happy to see Liverpool go out with a stronger lineup, regardless of the opponent, and say, no, this is not a kid tournament for us. This is a rare chance to win a trophy. You have this and the Champions League, realistically, that you can go after. So we want this kind of a thing. So I did like seeing the strong lineup and obviously the win to go to the next round. And then we have Brighton now. So, or I mean, it could always be worse. You could be a United fan where you're out of this as well and you have nothing to play for. But to hear more on that, tune in 45 minutes when I'll be live on Rival Bros with my brother, who is the United fan over there. And he's not smelling as much as he used to a month ago. That's all I got to say. But that is it for us this week. Thanks a lot, everybody. Nice talking to you, chatting, you, hosting you guys again. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. I don't even want to know what that is.
R.I.P. Bob Weir. Shout out to Bob Weir and the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm
living
all
legend.
But,
it was a tough one on Saturday. That was a tough one.
I bet. Yeah, I had a lot of people like on my timeline that did take it hard. I'm not like a huge fan of the band or anything, so it didn't as much to me. But I saw some people really, and I can think when I saw that I was like, a couple of names came to my mind that I would probably. I think we all have a couple of people that maybe we sync their music to some, an era in our life or something like that. So we kind of like take it harder. But yeah, rest in peace to this show though. As we end this over here, we'll be here same time next week. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Bye.